when she comes in. Good morning. It is 10:05, officially January 7. Let me call to order the meeting of the January 22 meeting of the Human Relations Commission. My name is Karen Oresti, Chair. Let me initially call the roll. Oh, there you go. Good. Okay. Already heard from Commissioner Ahmad that she will be out of town, so she is excused absent. Commissioner DeBeer. We see you. We didn't hear you.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Fan.
Present.
Good morning. Commissioner Hall will be coming in, I think, in a few minutes. Commissioner Pellegrini, we'll do it out of alphabetical order.
Hello, here.
Commissioner James.
Here.
I guess that's it. Do I have everybody? And we'll recognize Vice Chair Hall when she comes in. Do we have a quorum?
Your one member short of quorum.
All right, so we'll hold off on doing anything formal until we get to that point. And hopefully Commissioner Hall will come in soon. I'd like to welcome and thank very much the Chairwoman of the St. Louis County Council, the Honorable Rita Hurd Days, who is joining us this morning. Very much appreciate your taking the time, Chairwoman. If I may, just sort of as a point of privilege, given that I can tell a story for a little bit while we wait for Commissioner Hall. Just on a bit of background on the commission as I know it. It's going to be an imperfect background, but I think part of the challenge in that is that the way the records have been kept for this particular commission have let's just say waxed and waned over the years. My understanding, and by the way, grateful that we are now in a much more formal and structured setting than we used to be. I think it'll help us be a whole lot more efficient and impactful. It is my understanding that the Honorable Lawrence Roos, Larry to many, actually had put this commission or something like it together back in the 1960s, at which time he named a longtime staffer for the county by the name of Robert Cohn, who served the county for many years in a variety of different positions, and then left the county to become a longtime editor and then editor emeritus of the St. Louis Jewish Light. And Mr. Cohn was the chairman of this commission, I think, for 55 years. And I'm quite serious about that. He may be the longest serving volunteer for the county ever. And he retired officially in February this year. Caroline is asking, is this the Lawrence Roos? Yes, in fact, it is the Lawrence Roos of the Roos building at 41 South Central. And there were folks who came on and off the council. Its original group was around 9 folks. I'm not sure that it was ever fully staffed. I came on in my role as the regional director for the Anti-Defamation League in 2001 and stayed on as recording secretary until the spring of 2019. When a little after that, the county executive asked me to return, and we started the process of pulling this thing together more formally. Commissioner Fan has been on the council for a bit, also as Commissioner Ahmad, but we're really glad to welcome lots of new faces. And under the current, and by the way, appreciate your and your colleagues on the council approving the effort to not only update the language of the chartering language of this particular commission, but the number of folks who represent it. We're now at 11, so we technically have 3 vacancies with 8 members, 2 of whom have been approved, and 1 of which, Cindy Johnson, is still waiting to see her application formally move forward. But really appreciate the variety of folks and the different voices that are around. I think the biggest change, if I recall, to the process of the commission itself came when the state of Missouri passed a formal hate crime statute in 1988. That statute, whether intentional or otherwise, essentially abrogated what around the state had been a whole variety of statutes and ordinances in various communities, generally known as ethnic intimidation statutes. And it sort of created things in a much more holistic space. Initially, it was, so 1988, it was amended in 1999 to include protection for disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. Gender identity, and sexual orientation. And so it is actually one of the more broad statutes, which also led to more things being handled in those spaces by state actors, namely states' attorneys, local police departments, and that sort of thing. And less things coming formally through the commission. If you want to spend a few exhaustive hours, I'm happy to set up a time for you to talk with Bob. He can probably tell you every story of every case that came before the commission in that time. But with that shift, things just started to change a bit. And with people looking more locally than they did sort of statewide or even countywide, I think the actual responsibility and the work that was contained in the charter and the enabling language just became much more internal. We certainly had interesting conversations amongst ourselves. We brought people to the commission table to learn and talk and understand. We created some new relationships around the table, but it was never as candidly impactful, as provocative as it could be, as weighty as it could be. And certainly in light of what's been happening around the county, particularly around hate, bias, discrimination, all of those things, it became a much more friendly place, I think, to be able to do this work with some seriousness and purpose. I'll stop there. I don't know if anyone else who is currently on has other questions or thoughts about and I really appreciate Commissioners James and Pellegrini and incoming Johnson for stepping up in a time when it's been much harder for us to all get to know each other on a personal level, so that we can be more effective in sharing our different voices to do some good work. But Chairwoman, that's kind of the basics for you. I don't know if you have any questions yourself, but I'm happy to hear from other folks.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm here to listen.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Hey, Chairwoman, as a note, I wanted to add that Vice Chair Hall has joined and you now have established.
Good morning, Vice Chair. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, all of you all.
If anybody has any other thoughts, otherwise we can, now that we have a quorum, we can go to the approval of the minutes. We had held back the approval of the minutes from the Friday, November 5 and Friday, December 10. Those have been shared by Mr. Nelson. I assume everybody's had a chance to review. Can I get a motion on approving those minutes?
So move.
Thank you, Jay. A second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions or concerns, any corrections or anything like that? I assume that those might have been passed to Jay. Commissioner Fan.
I'd like to apologize for not being on last time. I had a terrible pain, which turned out to be an abscess, and now I am minus one tooth. But also Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, Commissioner. Thank you. Seeing no other comments, and we're glad you're here, if not a whole, minus a tooth, we accept. Can I get a voice vote on approving the minutes? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? For some reason, no thanks. Okay, so the minutes are officially passed. Turning to communications, you've already received a copy of the letter that we sent collectively to Captain Jerry Kelly, the director of the St. Louis County Police Academy, regarding the variety of unfortunate and very difficult things that had happened at the academy around race and racism from instructors, independent contractors. We'd asked Captain Kelly to come with staff to initially the December meeting. They were unable to do so because of the significant death of Detective Antonio Valentine, and that was we conflicted with his memorial service. We understood that. I spoke with Captain Kelly this week to see if he would be joining us today. He said the press of business made that very difficult. And so I have invited him again for the February meeting, and look forward to hearing from them, and basically reiterated what I think we said in the letter, which is we want to learn what issues, policies, practices, thoughts, decisions are in place around these issues, around instructors, around evaluations, around background understanding, so that we can be a meaningful partner in making it all better. I hope he comes in February. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions from where they sit?
I think at some point, as we have mentioned quite a few times in the past, that if you are unable to contact or have Captain Kelly attend the meeting, then there is a board of managers that is in charge of the police academy. And so Captain Kelly happens to be one of, or he sits on the board of managers. However, there's a number of other people on the board of managers. So at any point, if you feel as if that you're asking Captain Kelly to come, there's two different routes that you can take. You could either contact someone who would be his boss, which could ultimately be the chief, or you can contact the board of managers as a whole and voice it as, hey, we've reached out to Captain Kelly a few times and asked him to come here in a very respectful and professional way, and he has declined a couple of times, or just declined by way of not attending. So we are now reaching above him in attempts to understand what the policies, practices, so forth and so on are at the police academy.
And thank you, Vice Chair Hall. I noted that with him. Also said that if he was personally challenged by his schedule, he could certainly send representatives. I mean, the information is broad enough that it doesn't just rest with him. So thank you. I'll note the Board of Managers, and we'll go forward that way and just take it up to next steps. Anybody have any questions or thoughts? I don't think there's anything formal we need to vote on relative to that. We're just gonna keep being persistent, as it were, in that. What I told him was essentially fact-finding. 3.2 on communications, you've also been sent a copy of a link to a KMOV article. There were a number of articles to rather extraordinarily difficult vandalism at Washington University in December. For those of you who know the South 40 and the underpass at Forsyth, a mural defaced by racist graffiti in other languages. I also invited Captain Goodwin, Dave Goodwin, who's currently interim police chief at WashU Department of Public Safety, to come and talk with us about this. He declined until such time as they complete their investigation. Understand that. Re-upped my invite that we'd like to hear how that plays out. And what steps the university will be taking once they have all the information in hand about the perpetrators. Does anybody have any thoughts about what we did not do, frankly, is communicate directly with the university? I'd love to gather some thoughts about how folks would feel about how we might do that most effectively.
I guess I'll go again. So it will be a way of, it depends on what it is that the commission decides that they are attempting, or what it is that they want to do with this would depend on who you contact and why you contact whoever it is you decide to contact. So if this is a thing, and it can have a number of different pathways. And so if you're just wanting to bring light to the situation, light as in like letting the rest of the public know that such crimes are still occurring in St. Louis County, then by all means, you can just do that in a general way of still stating that from being a commission as a whole. If the commission decides they want to specifically find out who this is, then of course, then you would have to continue those conversations with the chief of police and Creve Coeur, being that the crime occurred in their venue. So it just kind of depends on what the commission decides they want to do. Like, what is it that we are looking to do with what it is that happened?
Well, okay, what do you think? And I think it's actually University City is the presiding, is the jurisdiction in which that area sits. Campus police have a supervising jurisdiction over that, so they're going to be the ones that are doing that. I did get a note back from Larry Hampton deferring, Larry Hampton, who is the chief of the University City Police Department, deferring to the folks on campus. But given what you say, Shanette, what are your thoughts? What would you like to see us do? I mean, all ideas are on the table.
So, and obviously, one thing, one of the first steps that will always occur is denouncing such an activity, saying that this is something that we would not agree on. There are a number of times or incidents where people do not take a side, if you will, for lack of a better term, of saying like, hey, this is a good thing, we support this, hey, this is a bad thing, this is not good. That is first and foremost would have to be one of the first things to be done. In order to kind of like walk up and down the street and have some actions, you got to first jump off the porch, if you will. So that if that's what we decide as a commission, then that first has to be one of those things, making formal statements. And so as we are as a commission, one of our main job is to always act as an advisory capacity or in an advisory capacity, towards the county executive and the council. And so if nobody else is speaking up, and it could be because they don't necessarily know what happened, or because there's so many different acts of racism that occur in St. Louis County all the time. And so they could have missed this one. And so with that being said, it could be something that's simply sent to them, to whether it be Dr. Page, several members on the council, if it's the chairwoman or whomever, saying, hey, look, we don't agree with this. We keep having these incidents occur. What is it that we can do about the hate that has occurred in St. Louis County? And then start that conversation there.
If I could impose on you, Chairwoman, just to lend your thoughts, if we did a recommendation formally, let's say when the investigation is complete and there's an announcement of perpetrator or perpetrators and some sort of steps that WashU's going to take, if we then at that point, sort of issued our own statement recommending that the council take a position, do you sit comfortably with doing something like that?
We certainly could do something like that. I do share the fact that although we are part of the county, we don't have access to all the information that has occurred. And what we hear, we don't really hear directly from you or other departments. Basically, we get our information from the news, which is not good. And so I think that it would be incumbent upon your commission and others to give us the information. We certainly could put together resolutions. It would not be appropriate for any kind of an ordinance at this particular point, but certainly a strong resolution denouncing those kinds of acts. And many of them, as I think the vice chair has said, many of these has happened and there has been absent. The silence is deafening on much of this. And I think it is appropriate that you guide us and tell us what is happening. And then the responsibility would be ours.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Does anybody have any other thoughts? Commissioner Fan and then Commissioner DeBeer.
So I want to center the folks who were most directly impacted, who are the students, right? And I think, I think about my student experience and how it felt kind of disconnected and disjointed from the local community. And I think it would be good to have a statement, right? But also, also as someone who works a fair amount with students at WashU, I I want them to know that they are part of the community, right? Because sometimes that whole town gown bubble thing happens, and I'm not sure what the best way to do to welcome, or not welcome, but to let them know and feel supported. I also want to think about the fact that there are international students at WashU who are separated from their families by, continents, and not just, college students who are here who are like from other parts of our country. So, um, yeah, I don't know how to best do that, but I guess if they want to have a forum to talk about stuff, right? And obviously, I don't know how we also best interact with WashU on that. I would hope and believe that WashU is also providing them a forum, but um, we are all residents of the county, and well, some students live in the city, but you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Reverend DeBeer.
Yeah, so I guess I would encourage the commission to react more in time to these kind of situations. And I don't know, maybe Jay can help us with this, but is there a way for the executive committee to issue statements that are more in real time than waiting for a monthly meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask too also, and Genevieve from the counselor's office, Ms. Frank may have some thoughts about this procedurally. I tweeted out and I posted on Facebook. I can do that as an individual. I also staff the U.S. Attorney's Hate Crimes Task Force, which meets quarterly. And so I apprise the folks around the task force table, who are both law enforcement and community folks. Commissioner Fan has been a member for many years, about that. And we will talk about it again in March. Our meetings are quarterly. I can tweet, I can socialize as an individual. Do we have the ability to socialize as a commission, and how messy does that get in terms of sort of the PR piece and who writes and who, gets to tweet out? Because the reality is people don't know unless it's social.
Maybe not.
I'm not exactly.
May I interject here? I'm sorry, Jen, I don't want to jump over you, but we do pay a lot of attention to the social media aspect of this, and I will warn again that everyone is not on social media, and there are a lot of interested people. They just don't get the information, and I think that having different ways of articulating the concerns of this commission would clearly be helpful. So I want to make sure that we don't just kind of lend our communication to one vehicle versus the other. And I will also add that, again, I'm not sure if that person lives in St. Louis County, but it really doesn't matter. I think that any kind of discrimination or acts of that kind or should not be tolerated. And I think this commission is in a perfect place to indicate that. And I hearken to the news reporter, I believe she's on Channel 5, that was met with a racist tweet or whatever they call them. However, I think she sent an email to the station about, and there was no reaction. I really didn't hear a lot, about that, except that when it came on the news and she articulated what had happened, and she talked about her response with the lady that she apologized, and she accepted apology and move on. But I think the more we allow these kinds of incidents to move forward without some kind of notice, that I think the more prevalent they become. And if you will notice that our country right now is in a very volatile situation regarding different people, sex, ethnicities, religion, of course. And so I think it's time for us to kind of, at least from you, that's just me saying I'm the chair. I don't run your commission, but I think it's high time that we either step into the fray if we're going to do it or not.
Yeah, agree with you. And I do see it as a both and. So very much appreciate your comments. Sorry, Caroline, let me quickly just ask Jen her thoughts, and then I'll follow up with you if you may. Jen.
Okay, and I'm not sure I understood the question. If you could.
I simply, do we have the opportunity, if we chose to create STLHRC Twitter handle or Facebook or Instagram, and we had, you know, a set of policies that could define how and when we were going to respond, could that be one aspect, as the chairwoman suggests, one aspect of many layers that might allow us to step into the fray, as it were?
So you are asking me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're asking if your commission has authority or there are any legal impediments to you setting up a social media account and speaking, making public statements and that kind of thing about whatever through that social media account, I think is what you're
That's
you're
correct.
saying.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Even if you had a policy in place for that.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's something I wouldn't be able to provide you with an opinion on today, but we can certainly provide you with an opinion on that. And so this is, as I articulated it, does that capture
Yep.
your entire question, do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks
We
very
can
much.
Get back to you with an opinion on that.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Fan?
I would like to thank Chairwoman Days for being here with us, and thank you for recognizing Michelle's kind of plight. I am friends with Michelle, and as an individual, of course, supported her. She tagged me in it. You know, I sent it around to a number of my friends around the country, including journalists, to uplift it. And yeah, so I I would like to I think in terms of speaking and having a voice as a county resident, I guess, and I don't know where to put this, right? But I personally, as an individual, currently feel too intimidated to actually attend county meetings in person and voice my thoughts for a number of reasons, including health safety reasons. And it's not just health safety reasons. Omicron is very, very contagious, but also I am afraid, frankly, to go and state my address and to be in a room full of folks who yeah, I don't know. I just want to say that I attended the Webster city council meetings and folks didn't argue about wearing masks and it was very calm. And I have also been to municipal meetings in other places where basically it's a free-for-all and folks are screaming at other residents from the podium. So there are things that have been said in county council chambers which are hurtful and hateful, and um I'm afraid. I like I'm literally afraid to go and speak what I think.
Commissioner Fan, there is a bullet point on the new business side of the agenda on the public forum. And I appreciate your comments very much. Might ask you to reserve additional thoughts for that conversation if you would. But thank you. I hear what everybody says. Does anybody have any other thoughts about broader communications? We can certainly lift information up to the council. We can lift information up to the county. Dwayne, Commissioner James.
I agree with making public statements about incidents. I just think that we have to be careful as a commission that we highlight some, but we don't highlight all, because there are so many. And so how do we make sure that we're not just highlighting the ones that get attention from the news media, but we're highlighting every incident that's actually happening out there? And to me, it's what is the work that's actually happening after the highlight. There was incidents that are happening throughout St. Louis County that were news at 11, but now no one knows about them. And so from a commission standpoint, I think that we do our work to make sure that they get the attention that they deserve the day after the news story. And what are we doing about it from that standpoint? That's just something I was going to share.
Thank you. That's like really legitimate, this sort of falls, I mean, my response to you falls in a little bit in the old business space. Mr. Murdoch, in the context of the continuing opening sessions or listening sessions that we're having on the equity in St. Louis County piece, maybe there's a place for this conversation uniquely in that.
Well,
Structurally, is that, what do you think about that?
our next equity plan meeting is at this 26th, Wednesday night, and it's building equity in government. And that might be a good space for people to come talk about their beliefs on building equity in government and how this fits into building equity in government. So I was going to talk a little bit more about it, that section, but yeah,
Okay.
that would be an open space for you to talk about how that could be building equity in government.
Yeah, because I think what Commissioner James is saying is probably hugely important, which is how do you capture as much as you can without leaving some on the side, and that's a challenge. Of, I mean, broadly information gathering too, not just what happens to be on the news you know, what are our ways in which we can coordinate with others in the community who are gathering this information to make sure that we connect the dots reactively and then after. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that then. Any
Hey,
more?
Karen.
Yeah, please, Jay.
Hey, I just wanted to follow up with Commissioner James. So I guess what I got from his comment is it's probably more about, we can make a statement, but then what's the follow-up or what's the action? So that's, if we could start to lean into that direction, I think that'll be helpful for all of us
Right.
to make change.
And I agree with that big time. Okay, moving on to new business. I've been wandering around the St. Louis County ordinances and actually came across the fact that on the Business Advisory Council, and some of that addressed, by the way, in the chairwoman's pending proposal on minority women business enterprise, the Business Advisory Council. Turns out we have a representative on that council, Janice Harris, who served on this council for quite a while and who retired from it in last year sometime. I don't remember the date, but she had a lot of other things going on, and I imagine one of these was this. But she's no longer on this commission. So if I may direct to either to the counselor's office or to Mr. Nelson, whither do we go from here? I actually Janice and I have been, you know, trading emails about a good time to talk. We haven't just figured it out. So what are your thoughts about our obligation relative to the Business Advisory Council and having a representative of this commission serve on that?
So it's my understanding that the HRC would make a recommendation to the county executive on one of its members to be seated on the BAC. That position is appointed by the county executive and needs the county council approval. So there will need to be a formal recommendation for one of the HRC members to be recommended to serve in her seat.
So can I make a motion to that order then?
Well, but so here's my problem. We're sort of still in a little bit of a limbo with acting Commissioner Johnson not being formally moved up to the council. Is that right, Jay? Mr. Nelson?
Yes, Commissioner Johnson, I believe, was not able to make the committee of the whole where Commissioner Pellegrini and James were heard before council members in the committee of the whole. So she is still pending on the council agenda.
So maybe if we can get her back on the agenda and figure out a way to move her forward, and then we can have a full conversation about who might want to take on that responsibility and get some information from the BAC about how often they meet and all the other bits and pieces that would allow folks to have all the information they need to decide whether they wanted to step up.
Yes.
Is there anything more that I need to be concerned on that? We can kick that to February perhaps.
Yes, and I'm also happy to reach out to the Chief Diversity Officer for St. Louis County, Vita Jeffries. She is actually the liaison to the BAC, so she would have more information to share with the HRC. I'll see if she's available for the February meeting.
Yeah, that would be superb because I'd love to hear from her directly. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay. The item 4.2, were there any other thoughts on that? Any questions, any other thoughts? No. Okay, thank you. Item 4.2, you have received a copy of the draft report of the Human Relations Commission. Another thing that's new, we've never done this before. So I'm taking the timing of this report, which is very, very much in draft, back to February of 2020, I think, which is when we started meeting much more actively. Although there might have been some in 19. So here's my ask to help me finish this report and then be able to present it to you and really get a more substantive feedback. For those who have notes, minutes, for instance, I am missing Caroline, and I'm embarrassed by this, but there's a lot of stuff that's on my ADL laptop to which I have no longer access. Like the formal statement that we prepared on anti-AAPI hate in the spring last year, and some other things like that. So if you could find some of those. Yeah, Mr. Nelson.
I was going to say, I do have the letters that the HRC has sent forward throughout the year, so I will get those over to you.
Yeah, send me those links and then I can make sure we get specific blurbs in the report about it. My intent was not to put in exhaustively every single thing we've sort of talked about, but really to highlight key issues. So that people get a sense of what we're looking at, what we're talking about, that sort of thing. If we need to link to public documents, want to make sure those hyperlinks go in. Any other questions about the draft report from what you've already seen? It's pretty spare. So I tell you what, for the sake of time, email me any of the thoughts you have. You can CC all the members. And anybody have some thoughts and follow up, that would be great. Item 4.3 on the new business is the matter of the open forum. Madam Chair, I would like to thank you, having listened to your statement on Tuesday last on the open forum and the intent of the council, and I appreciated your words a great deal. I was terribly frustrated that the people who then chose to participate, even though you had kind of warned them, chose to say the same old in many instances. Some folks who clearly really only have hate on their minds. And I was really sad about that, frankly. Curious to know thoughts that we might, conversation that we might have about the open forum. Is there a role for the commission to put forward on this issue? Is there a potential conversation around structuring the open forum differently? I do understand that it's it is a council rule and not an ordinance. Therefore, it has some flexibility around it. And be curious to know thoughts from folks around the table about how we might provide the council with some guidance on it. And Chairwoman, if you have any thoughts, please don't hesitate to speak up.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. I would like to, if I could point out, members of the commission, I would advise refrain from using the chat function, sort of to speak among the people that are on the panel during the meeting, but rather instead, ask their questions, verbalize their questions, or at least read someone, you or the poster should read what they posted in the chat for the benefit of the public.
Okay. There was just to follow that up, a comment from Commissioner Fan about things that she would testify to the county council about, similar to the Webster TIF that was at issue when Webster voted last week around the substantial development. So I appreciate that. Sorry, Chairwoman, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'm interested in what the commission has to say about that. We do have the public forum that has been established, I believe, since the beginning of the council. It is there to hear what people have to think. I am in no way in a position to censure or to, I guess, pre pre-hear what is going to be said and make those decisions. I think that I have to be very, very careful. It's a tightrope, and when you're looking at First Amendment rights, you would not want anyone to turn off your microphone or prohibit you from saying what it is that you really want to get across to the council members that are there. And I think it's a very I guess, tenuous situation. Clearly, I have to sit there and listen to a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with, but that is the right of these people to come before and have their 3 minutes of fame, whatever they think that may be. So because of I guess, the COVID situation, it has really brought out a lot of people who have a lot of passion on both ways. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that not all of these folks, we had, I think, 14 people to speak at the last meeting, and all of those were not regarding the mask and the vaccination and that kind of thing. The majority were, but there were other issues that people bring to this council all the time. And so I'm not sure the fear factor there, but I have to be there. So it's not that I'm not necessarily a little concerned about that, but that's my job. And so, I think that when people kind of like, advocate to others, then that message becomes greater than it actually is. So I would be interested in hearing what you feel that might be of help in that situation. But as you said, it is rules. It's not an ordinance or anything like that. These are rules that we make. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. Members of the commission, Commissioner Fan, you have your hand up?
Yes, again, I want to express, I don't know why is my volume okay? I think
Yeah.
there might, okay.
For me, it is.
For whatever reason, there's a little bit of a doubling sound. My appreciation for you being here in this virtual space with us, right? And I think, yeah, there are First Amendment rights, and I one, I am afraid to go in person and speak my address to folks who might not agree with what I have to say about masking, about anti-AAPI hate, about AAPI mental health. Two, it is really from a public health perspective, and I am not a doctor, but my husband is, and Barnes is having the most cases that we've had in this whole pandemic. And the last time I testified in person, I think to council, was to try to make sure that folks, could stay safe and that we could save lives. And I don't feel like I have the equal ability to say my piece, right, to council. And of course I can write it naturally. But I guess I just question why there isn't an option to provide online testimony. Like right now, our case positivity is 34%, so 1 out of every 3 tests is positive. And I don't, I don't want to have to make this choice between getting sick and perhaps permanently disabled because we don't know what's going on with long COVID. And I already have conditions that make it difficult sometimes to be in person. And I've had the experience, unfortunately, of a municipality that I am not going to name where I've gone in person and been subjected to harassment both by people in the room and by people on the dais. And so I just, like there are other folks that I know who have many issues, not just about public health, who would like to go in person to um, county council, and a number of us are really just too afraid to, because I will be honest, yesterday, right, when my husband went off to work at the hospital, I told him to be safe. And it wasn't just about COVID. I was concerned that what happened to Kansas City with the guy who tried to car bomb the hospital, that would happen, right? So that happened in April or May of 2020, and there are folks who really want to not just disrupt our discourse and our free and democratic government, but you know, who want to end lives like in very violent ways. And that's all. And I know you have to be there, and I feel for you on that. But I just feel really very torn and have for about 2 years about like having freedom of speech myself and also like being able to be alive. I can't get my husband sick. Like, you know, and I think there are many of us who really want to protect our elders and whatnot. And as I said, the last time I testified in person was towards the beginning of the pandemic. And I was just trying to make sure that everyone could stay alive. And it is so heartbreaking to me that so many have died needlessly. I'm sorry. It's just,
Carolyn, I hear the pain, and I'm sorry you feel that way. And I think I think this structure is untenable for us now. We've got to hang in there for a while longer, and we're all kind of playing it day by day. I think the suggestion you have of the online video testimony is an option to bring back to that within the group. We'll put it up there for consideration. Thank you. Is there anybody else who has some thoughts about structural things that we might suggest to the council on the public forum? I have one, not hearing from anybody else. There isn't language in the order, in the rule itself, that people who speak to the council in their 3 minutes have to speak to something germane on the agenda that night. I think if they were limited to what the council is actually talking about at that meeting might help. Granted, masking and some of the other more contentious issues are going to be an ongoing thing, I think, for the council potentially. And so those issues are not going to go away as part of the presentation. But what happened in December, where this fellow just went on an anti-Semitic screed, which I think frankly left members of the council pretty dumbfounded. I'm sure it left people who were watching it dumbfounded. I certainly was, and I've been listening to this stuff for 25 years. That kind of thing could be called out of order right off the bat. Do you have a First Amendment right to speak? You do, and I am very sympathetic to balancing those First Amendment rights. I think there are a variety of ways in which members of the county, the residents, can have First Amendment rights to address the council, whether it's through email or letters or meetings or otherwise. But do I feel that anybody, for any reason based on hate, has the right to get up and just spew? I worry about the consequences of allowing that to continue. And I think it's well within the purview of the council to add that sort of germane relevance, whatever you want to call it, to the rules to limit some of that more outlier type behavior.
Well, two things
I would
on
just
that,
say
Karen, if
that-
I may. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to respond to that real quick. I would just say that we have to be careful with how we suggest that language as well, because when I sat on council, sometimes we learn stuff that was actually happening in the community by that public comment portion. It wasn't on the agenda, but this was a way for us to basically make it a part of the next week's agenda because it was information that the community was willing to share during that time. So I agree, don't spend that 3 minutes to basically spew hate, but also it might not be on the agenda, but it might be something that's actually pressing that needs to be addressed by council. So that's the opportunity for that to actually happen as well. So we just have to be careful with that language as well.
Here he
So,
is. Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I also want to say at our last meeting that we had a couple of issues that were not on the agenda. One was redistricting, and we had a couple of people that talked about redistricting. We had a woman that talked about an issue with the prosecutor and the molestation of her child.
Right.
That was not on the agenda. So I'm not sure if limiting that would be helpful, because I think, again, as Commissioner James has mentioned, you may cut off some issues that people really have a burning desire to talk about. And again, we as a council are not aware of all those things. So we have to make sure that people have the liberty to do that. A couple of things though, when you come to the council, you don't give your address, you give your zip code. So no one has your house number and all that, for where you actually live. We simply ask for your zip code for the record. So it's not your full address that you have to give there. So, and the other thing too is that I mentioned that we had a municipality, and I'm not sure if you all were aware of this one, that did seek to censure the comments of the people that came there to that meeting. As a matter of fact, I believe she cut people off, did not allow them to speak, and was sued for that. And the citizens won. And so St. Louis County is not in a position to have another lawsuit on its hand. I will tell you that. So again, it's a tightrope that we walk here. And, of course, everybody turn off the microphone, that kind of thing. And I just don't think that is an appropriate way to handle that. I think that as we move forward, it was obvious that the dissent from the council was very real. But I also want to make sure that we're not yielding too much to one faction and not the other, because that's kind of how it's seen these days. But I clearly hear your concerns. When the council takes up the rules, which they will be doing very shortly, they may decide that. But I, as chair, will not, as I said earlier, I'm not going to unilaterally decide how we're going to move forward with public comment. We have 7 members of that council, and each one of them will have a significant input in it as to how we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeBeer.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Commissioner James for his wisdom and insight. I think there's a lot of things to think about. And then also, Commissioner Fan, I just want to know that you're heard. And I think it's important to know that you're heard about what's going on with COVID. I think we all have our own experiences with that, but thank you for sharing that. It's appreciated.
Commissioner Fan, yes, thank you.
Thank you. The last time that I testified in person, I think I had to write down my address, and all I'm asking really is like, and I'm very unfortunately familiar with the municipality that got sued. I am very unfortunately familiar with it because I was shaking for 30 minutes after having been interrogated during one of their meetings. And all I'm asking really for is for the opportunity for all of us to have freedom of speech in real time, right? Like, and this is not on any particular issue. So, like, there are folks who would like to come and talk about things who, not about masking, not about other things. And we do not feel safe. And I will say for myself, I do not feel safe being in that room. And yeah, like what are the accommodations for folks who have disabilities? I have vertigo. Like, I can't always go in person.
All right, well, Commissioner Fan, thank you. I very much appreciate those comments and understand the chairwoman has heard. And as the discussion moves forward on the rules, we stand ready to provide whatever input is appropriate to the council, and look forward to learning more. Thank you. 4.4 on new business, just want y'all to take note of the John Buckner Soil Collective event. The Restorative Justice Coalition in this area is in a partnership with the Equal Justice Initiative. Those of you who know out of Birmingham, Brian Stevenson and the Lynching Museum. The RJC here will be, as part of its Martin Luther King Day observance, doing a program on the lynching of John Buckner. which is from the late 1890s, I believe. That's at 11 o'clock at Booter Park. I responded that I will go in my role in the commission. I think I sent the link. If others want to come, I would just encourage, however you choose to observe Dr. King's Day, that we can gather information more about how we do that and how we can spread the word about things that are available for people. And maybe this is part of, again, the broader, the larger, communications conversation. How do we communicate what's important to us, what we're doing, both as a commission collectively and individually? Are there any thoughts on that event? Were there other events that people had noted that they might be going to that we should know about for the record?
At any point, hey you all, and sorry I had to step away for a moment. So I missed just a small portion, but I'm here. At any point, I think someone posed a question before when we sent out the email about Mr. Buckner and what it is that occurred with him in Valley Park. How has anyone been notified of this event and the fact that it's even occurring? Or do we know if anyone has been notified? Being the public.
All I can tell you is that I shared it sort of internally with this group. I know the RJC has a rather significant website that people have been responding to. They've been asking for formal responses, and the event is on the, I think it's Parks and Recreation a site for St. Louis County. So the county has been lifting it up that way. Beyond that, I'm not sure.
Jay, do you know if anyone from, I know the county executive was invited. Obviously, we see Wesley Bell, and I don't know Prosecutor Bell, that's outside of your purview, of course. But do we know if the county themselves if they've uplifted this or say, hey, this is occurring? I think given the event and the type of event it is, it almost even kind of makes sense. And maybe this can be a better question for Mr. Murdoch, with you being in a diversity and inclusion unit. Has your office done anything to say this is occurring? Have you contacted other civic organizations, whether they be the Urban League, the NAACP, and anything like that? Has St. Louis County done that at all?
I can jump in and say yes. The NAACP, the NCCJ, I've contacted both those organizations, even the ACLU, told them about this event. I think we also, Theta helped put it on the parks page so that St. Louis County could lift it up. So yeah, I do also plan to be at the event myself and give my respects at that event.
We both have registered.
Okay. And while organizations are also very important, the flip side is that is notifying the public. I think this is something that is the public should be made aware of, and to understand this is a part of our history here in St. Louis County, and there's remnants of what it is that occurred then, and we can then, I'm sorry, what it is that occurred then, and how we can still see evidence of the atmosphere that was very alive and thriving then, of evidence of that same type of atmosphere being alive and thriving now. While it is, obviously, we know that lynchings are not occurring in the same high numbers as they were in 1894, which is when it happened. But we're talking about the rooted racism that allows such an incident to occur. That racism is still occurring today in 2022. So with that being said, are we including the public? Are we making the public aware of this? And it's just a blanket question, I guess, whether, and I don't know who would be the appropriate entity to do, and just putting it out on social media or just putting it out on websites, that's great. But we all know, as in Chairwoman Days mentioned earlier, everybody doesn't have access to social media. So has it been done from county administration and say, hey, let's contact even news outlets, or, just trying to, I guess, understand if there's been a little bit more than the easy way of notifying people, if it's been a little bit more than that done.
Mr. Murdoch, you want to jump in? I mean, my sense is the answer is yes. I'm just not sure of the specifics. The Restorative Justice Coalition, I think, has been pretty formal in how they put this event together. So I assume attention is being paid.
Yeah, I can't speak to what the Restorative Justice Coalition did themselves, because they're an outside entity, and I'm sure they've spread around as much as possible. As far as my office, we've told certain stakeholder groups in the area, like I said before, from the NAACP, the NCCJ, to even Sisters Talking Back and the Organization for Black Struggle. We've mentioned it to them and let them know that the events come. So we've done more word of mouth. Now, I'm not the communication shop, so I don't formally contact the press or Channel 2 or news or anything like that. And I can't really speak to if that's been done, other than it has been put on the Parks page, and that is a broadcast page for many people who look at that page.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all. In the old business, it should be continuing business, not old business, but Mr. Murdoch, can you share current status on the equity plan?
Sure. This Wednesday, January 26th, not this coming Wednesday, but the last Wednesday, January 26th, we once again in County Council chambers will be presenting another equity plan forum. Now, the equity plan, as we know, we've been having meetings every last Wednesday of the month for some time now as we talk about different subjects in the equity plan. This is building equity in government, and it's a redo of one we tried to do early on in 2020, but some technical problems had pushed us back and made us have to do it again. So this is building equity in government. And there are two ways that people can communicate how they feel equity should be built in government. They can attend the forum that night, either physically or virtually in county council chambers, or they can email or send to the email the equity plan at stlouiscountymo.gov, a 5-minute video explaining what they feel about building equity and what that would mean in the community, or how they present building equity in government. We would like everybody to kind of stay topical, but sometimes, we understand that people veer a little bit off topic. But this is definitely about building equity in government and things that people in government can do to build equity, from how we could change forms, how we could look at things. I don't want to, come out with a list and limit people's idea, but the topic to this is building equity in government. Wednesday, January 26th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. I will be in County Council's chambers. And if there is a change, if we have to shut down or something because of the Omicron variant, we will send an email out as soon as we know that that is the new rules to do things. So we are keeping our eye on the variant and how that allows us to meet. But as far as it is right now, we will be in county council chambers and virtually for those who want to. It's a hybrid type meeting, so people can communicate in those different ways. So, and let me know personally or email me or Theta if there's anybody who you think we should reach out to who would be a good speaker or someone who has a stakehold in building equity in government. That's all I got for right now. Thank you.
Any questions? I want to reiterate, if you have thoughts about people uniquely in your worlds who should be speaking to this particular issue, please give them a heads up that the 26th is the date, and they can be virtual if they need to. I think in many ways, this is one of the most crucial conversations that we could hear. And frankly, I've learned a lot in terms of the folks who've already presented on the issues that have come before. So please be in touch with Mr. Murdoch if you have folks who, or if yourself, if you want to participate, you are entirely welcome.
And one small more thing about the equity plan. During this commission's February meeting, I would like a little bit more of expanded space to talk about how we would do the writing portion of the plan. We'll be writing by committee, so it has to be done in a way that can comply to sunshine law. So we have to, look at that and see how in committee we will write the actual equity plan. And I'm hoping that the commission will be full up to 11 people in some near future, so we don't have to get people new on while we're in the middle of writing the plan.
Right, Commissioner DeBeer.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Murdoch for his good work on that plan. So thank you so much. It's appreciated.
Yeah, and the writing piece is interesting. If I understand from Ms. Frank, 3 people triggers a sunshine law. It's 3 of us if we get together in a space and talk. There you go. Can't hear you.
So the question is, how many commission members can meet to discuss commission business and not trigger the need to notice up a public meeting? I can certainly add that to the list of questions that we are looking at for you, and we can provide you with that answer fairly quickly.
Thanks
We
very
don't
much.
generally give advice in open public meeting, but we can provide that advice for you.
That would be great. Just want to make sure we're on the up and up on that.
And are you just to clarify? Are you talking about commissioners who are attending some other meeting, or just getting together for?
No, yeah. I mean, by way of background, we have committed to doing this as a joint project with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and so have committed to helping Mr. Murdoch and his person and whoever wants to engage in the writing of this thing. Since it will be done by committee, it might trigger an obligation to be public in some way, and want to know that we're doing the right thing on that.
Okay, so meeting to work on that plan.
On the
Right,
writing
and
of the plan, yes.
we're in information gathering until April, I think, is the last listening session. So sometime, let's say between February, March, and going into the spring and probably over the summer would be that time period.
Okay, that's a helpful clarification. Thank you.
5.2, continuing discussion on substitute bill 1 for 291. The last time this was put on, I think the bill is got a different number now, relative to what's being subtitled the Whistleblower Bill. I don't know if there was any status, and I would ask the chairman, is there any status of which we should be aware on this? That frankly, we have discussed it. I don't know if we're being asked to do anything formal on it moving forward as it's being considered. I don't know that we necessarily have to. So would love to have your advice and counsel on that.
The information has come that you had some concerns about the legislation, that you have articulated that to Councilwoman Clancy. I have not heard from this commission. It is my legislation. I have not heard from this commission on what specifically your concerns are. Councilwoman Clancy did not express specific concerns. We are looking at retaliation, which is what a whistleblower language is. This ordinance has not been updated since the 1970s, I believe, and we are paralleling this legislation with the state law that is currently in place. And so it has been vetoed a couple of times because the concern came from this commission. That information came from the county executive as well as Councilwoman Clancy. So no one from the commission has articulated anything to me about how this is going down and what specifically are you looking at in terms of this legislation. So absent that, this bill has been out there since March of last year. We're coming up on another year, and there has been nothing formally about what your concerns are. And so I'm here to figure out what those are, and would appreciate something in writing as what you're looking at. And I want to be specific. The county council's office wrote this legislation. They have indicated to me that it's right in line with what the state statutes are referring to. And so absent that, I'm just not sure what the situation is.
Okay, fair. I think we first had a formal conversation about it in November. I know I know I had conversations with some members of the council. I think others on this commission have. We never formally sort of took any action beyond the discussion that we had in November. We tabled it in December because we did not have a quorum appropriate to have the conversation. Happy to work in a group to put something together in writing that everybody on this commission will stand behind and get that to you as soon as practicable. I'll go look, or ask, if I may ask Mr. Nelson to send me the current version. Was it changed from when it was 291? If it hasn't,
no, it has not changed. It has not changed at all. It's it's the same language, and so it has been, and it is right now, I believe it's on the perfection calendar. But I want you to understand what my position is in this, that we have major retaliation throughout St. Louis County in every department that exists in St. Louis County. And I believe that the protection of our employees should be first and foremost as we move forward. people should not have to come to work worried about what they say and how they say it, and toying with people's jobs. People come to work, they're uncomfortable. I get email, text messages all the time about some things that have happened in these various departments. They're not going to come out and say anything because these people have to have a job. They have to feed their families. And I think it is vehemently unfair to put them on Front Street. The few people that have done that have been retaliated against. We see the lawsuits that have been filed, many lawsuits, I would say no less than 10 at this particular point, based on retaliation. And so I think that it is incumbent upon us as a council, it's incumbent upon us on your commission, and of course, as the county as a whole, to make sure that our employees are protected. So that's the purpose of this legislation. No sinister involvement or anything like that. Just making sure that our employees are protected.
At the risk of speaking for people, I think when we come to the notion of protecting the employees of St. Louis County government, we are very much on the same page. Very much so. Okay, done. We'll do that. And I don't think I need do I need a vote on that? I don't think I really need a vote to provide information because that's under our mandate regardless. So I don't need to worry about that. Thank you.
Well, and then Karen, if I may as well, just to let people know, I think there was even in the November meeting, there was concern that was already mentioned about the bill. And so if there is that same concern still exists, there were a couple commissioners, to include yourself as well, Karen, that said that you had some concerns and you actually even laid them out. I think you provided us with a bit of a red line of some parts of the bill. And so if that's something that if you want to bring back forward by way of email, or if you want to actually call a special meeting, if it's something, so you can go over that. There's new members on here. So you can let them know, if you will, rather than waiting for another month. And so I don't want to keep finding ourselves in a situation where we're constantly kind of like tabling things and then some things are not getting done. But if your same concerns still exist that you did speak of back in the November meeting, if that's something that you want to tell the new commissioners on here, and if that's something that you also want to tell Chairwoman Days as well, because if I'm understanding correctly, and Chairwoman, you can correct me if I say it improperly, is that one of the main reasons as to why the county executive is vetoing this bill is because he is using the Human Relations Commission as a reason as to why he is vetoing it, because he said that we, or he maybe mentioned or inferred that we've had a formal disagreeing with the bill, which is not true at this point. So if that's something that's holding it back, should we make it known as a commission that at this point we have no formal opinion? One could be coming forth, but at this point we have no formal opinion, if that is the only thing that's holding the bill back. Did I word that question appropriately?
I think yes, it was. And in his veto message, he asserted that there was only one entity that was involved, and that this was a singular purpose legislation. And that's why I went through the lengthy explanation that I did earlier, because it's clearly not one department that we're looking at. We're looking at St. Louis County as a whole, and we've had many concerns from various departments about not being protected when they see something that is wrong. And that's the purpose of that. So I think Commissioner Hall, that is correct.
And I think there was a very substantive discussion at our November meeting, and I was very clear about how I felt. And I will go to the best I can, if it's not already part of a formal record, recreate that. But I'm not going to be the sole voice, because there are a lot of voices on this commission who have different experiences than I do, who may want to weigh in. And I'd like to provide a vehicle for them to be able to do that. And I'm also happy to reiterate for the chairwoman the conversations I had with the county executive, Representative Councilwoman Clancy and Councilwoman Webb about my concerns. So I've talked to a variety of people, have not certainly I have not held back in that regard, but I'll say it again. I share your concerns. I'm interested in protecting the county from further lawsuits. I'm interested in making sure that the people who work for St. Louis County feel as protected and as empowered as possible to do the right thing. Because in the end, that's not only going to be best for them, it's going to be best for the residents of St. Louis County. And so when I say we share that, we really do.
And again, as the author of the legislation, I certainly would have hoped that that would have come to me. I would be the one that would have to make the necessary changes or modify in whichever way that I felt was necessary. But I was not afforded that opportunity, and so that's basically why I'm here, to make sure that I want you to make sure that the communication goes both ways. And if there's something that I need to know, you can have my phone number or whatever, email, whatever it is, and you are well aware of how to get in touch with me. So I just want to make sure that is out there, that I'm looking forward to that kind of a conversation.
Sounds good. And I think also putting in writing is a sharp thing to do. We'll do that.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anything sort of good in welfare that we should mention before we go to public comments from people who have been on the telephone and or on other media who might want to weigh in? Hearing none. Mr. Nelson, are there folks who might want to offer some public comment to us today?
So we did not receive any public comments in writing, but we do have 2 attendees, and I'm going to unmute to see if they have a public comment. So first up is Reverend Duvall.
Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Nelson, and thank you, chairpersons, and Happy New Year to everyone on the call. I guess, well, one, I came in as an observer, and this last conversation about this bill has raised my blood pressure. To hear Chairperson, Councilwoman Days say that this legislation was put forth in March of 2021, and we are approaching a year. I know that government moves slow. Nobody on this call that obviously we're all Americans know that government moves slow. But as we're approaching Dr. King's birthday, he had left us with so many profound words, and one of the words that is coming to me now would be the urgency of now. I don't understand, because I know some of you personally. I've known you for some years. And why a whistleblower protection law or bill would not be honored by these people that I love so dear and have known for so long. We are fighting amongst ourselves against the very opposition that causes this. What really comes to mind, and please forgive me because I really am filled up. I just left Jefferson City yesterday morning for the prayer breakfast with the governor. I do not understand when people who share the same feelings about lawsuits, share the same feelings about protection, and then we don't get it done. It's reminiscent of what's going on with the United States Senate right now over voter protection. The urgency of now, I hate hearing, we'll talk about it next month. We'll talk about it next month. Or we didn't put this in writing. I know of some county employees right now that have already lost their jobs and are currently losing their jobs because we cannot get this bill to protect them. What does that say to the very children whose parents are losing their jobs under this pandemic? Now, I don't know what it's going to take, but I know my next 3 minutes of fame Tuesday, I'm going to say some things, and I'm going to pray right now that I don't have to use names, but talk about behavior. If this bill does not get passed and moved and supported, then it is my responsibility as a Black Baptist preacher that talks to preachers all over this state to start explaining, here are the very defectors of justice within our party, within our churches, within our purview. And we need to now have a coming to Jesus meeting to rise up the very believers that are not just Black, that are not just Baptists, but believers in God and justice and righteousness. All these titles, all these I'm a member of an organization means nothing when we cannot do things that impact people right now. I don't care about this election cycle. These issues go past an election cycle. I need to see leadership line up with action. And back in the King words, the urgency of now. It's a pregnant moment. Please pass this whistleblower protection. Please demonstrate that we're all on the same front, or then let us be separated by our votes, our lack of action. And if we keep talking about, well, we need additional voices and consensus, the very opposition, they don't have that issue right now. They listen to one crazy person and they show up. It's like the devil, the demons of 7, and they just multiply while we're sitting still. So my urgency, and again, I thank you for allowing me to vent. We need action on this bill. I pray that this action comes swiftly, and I will be looking forward to not to the sound bites, but what's in writing, what's dated, put it on the record. So we're not acting like the senator from Arizona or the senator from West Virginia, because that's what I feel like I'm hearing. And we have people who say they're in the party and then they're obstructing justice for everyone else. Thank you for my time.
And I apologize for interrupting you all because I have to go and come off of this, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for that comment from the public, and then is also for the next person if they shall choose to speak. And Reverend Duvall, I couldn't agree with you anymore. Honestly, I couldn't agree with you anymore. The silence will always be the thing that's the loudest in the room. And so thank you once again, and I apologize to the rest of the commissioners, but I kind of absolutely have to jump off at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Reverend Duval. Be safe. Is there anybody else, Mr. Nelson?
Chairwoman, we have caller user number 3. I'm going to unmute now. Caller user number 3, do you have a public comment? I'm not getting anything, Chairwoman.
Okay. Hearing nothing, the next commission meeting is scheduled for Friday, February 4 at 10 a.m. via WebEx. Again, information can always be supplied to the HRC at hrc@stlouiscountymog.gov. Are there any other thoughts before we close? At 11:27, do I have a motion? Well, no, wait, we lost Commissioner Hall, so we don't have a quorum. So I don't need to ask for a motion or a second. I just need to say at 11:27, we are adjourned.
Well,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Chairwoman, thank you so much. Very
you.
much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Talk to you again, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.